Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Kathy and I with more post-election astrology. But first of all, I'm Louise Edington, Cosmic Owl Astrology. You can find me at louiseedington.com, my website, or I write every day on Substack as the Cosmic Owl. And I also have memberships. I have a Spiral Weave membership that you can join either here on YouTube or over on Substack, and they get the same rewards. And I have a private membership on my website. But my biggest thing is that I've finished my new book on Ceres, Dwarf Planet, and it's due to be published on July the 13th. So watch this space for that. I'm very excited about it. I've got great reviews already. Kathy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Biehl. My website is empowermentunlimited.net. My YouTube channel is Professional Aquarian, and I have a Patreon, patreon.com/Kathy Biehl. I have regular forecasts. I have sassy daily forecasts on my Patreon, and we'll just leave it at that for now. I want to thank all the people a lot of people are sending us information all the time, and
Mm,
I'm pretty on top of the political news, but I do appreciate people making sure that we know what's going on.
because there's a lot going
There's
on.
a lot. Right, right.
Yeah.
And before I get
Mm,
into the news, I would like to acknowledge the unexpected to us passing of an astrologer who had been a guest a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago on
mm,
our channel, David Whitlock, who talked with us about the asteroid hack. He was extremely intelligent, quiet,
mm,
gentle soul, great researcher, and I am very saddened that he
mm.
has departed.
Yeah, me too. So sending love to anybody, affected and his family and his friends. Um, it was a great episode if you want to go back and watch it. And I've looked up in honor of David, I've looked up where asteroid hack is today, so perhaps I'll mention that when we look at the aspects a bit. So,
Excellent.
mhm. So,
All right,
the news.
I always start with a recap of news that has played out the forecasts that we've given. And
Mhm,
so I want everyone to give Louise incredible props here. She
mhm,
highlighted June 1st as being a massively important date. The Venus, which rule Venus in Aries in fighter mode,
mhm,
ruling people was conjunct Chiron, healing a wound, conjunct Eris, the tipper, in an opportunity aspect with Pallas, the strategist, and Ukraine took out 37% of Russia's military planes in a Trojan horse attack.
mm.
They
And
sneaked these
Eris,
things in
Eris
containers.
is the Trojan horse. Her actions in the myth led to the Trojan War with the Trojan horse. Anyway, I found that so.
Beautiful. But this had been
Mhm,
18 months in the planning. So there's the
mm,
Pallas Athena. And also, they hit military targets, not civilians, which will be important in a second. All
mhm.
32 members of NATO voted to let Ukraine in, and the head of NATO, Mark Rutte, said the path to membership is now irreversible. And
Mhm.
as the fighting aspects of last week continued, Ukraine pulled off other things. It mined the foundations of the bridge that connects Russia with Crimea and set a bunch of them off.
Mhm.
That obviously had been going on for a while. They had another attack that hit more military targets. And what
Mhm.
did Russia do? It started bombing civilian
Of
sites in Kiev.
of course, it was
So,
already doing that anyway, but bombing more, shall we say? Yeah.
okay, moving on to news involving courts. Many setbacks for the administration's actions. The U.S. Agency for Global Media was ordered to release $12 million in funding to the Voice of America's Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. Um, the mayor of Newark, who had been arrested by ICE for supposedly trespassing outside a detention facility, and then his charges were dropped. He is now sued the acting AG for the state of New Jersey, Aileen Haba, for malicious prosecution and false arrest. And he's talking about adding the head of ICE, Tom Homan, to the suit.
Mm.
SCOTUS, this was an interesting one. It let bans on AR-15s and high-capacity rifles stand in Maryland and Rhode Island. So interesting states' rights limitation on the Second
Mm.
Amendment. I don't know what the reasoning was for that. Um, hold on. In a case that's kind of below the radar, um, in Detroit, the city manager and another police officer have been put on administrative leave for reporting a pay-for-play scheme, like paying to get a presidential pardon and other things on behalf of the mayor, the chief of police, and some other people, and they've been there, so they have a lawsuit for retaliation. Um,
Mm.
that's interesting, and Fox News actually reported that. Judge Bose in the deportation cases, Judge Boasberg certified the deportees who had been sent to CCOT from March 15th to 18th as a class. He finds that their due process was violated, which meant they were supposed to get a hearing, and ordered the government to facilitate habeas corpus, which means show by what show by what grounds my body is in prison. That's essentially what that phrase means. Like, why do you
Mm.
have me? Prove to me why I should be here. In another deportation case, Judge Zinni is allowing Abrego Garcia's attorney to proceed with a sanctions request against the government due June 11. So that's going to be due during the astrological activity that we're going to be talking about in a
Mm.
minute. A court has blocked eliminating Job Corps and AmeriCorps, which is big.
Mm.
And some 70 people have, including former Florida Supreme Court judges and a whole bunch of law professors, have filed a complaint with the State Bar of Florida against Attorney General Pam Bondi for ethical violations and professional misconduct. The kicker here is there are a lot of people who have been filing complaints against her, and the Florida Bar has responded, thank you for your complaint. We don't act on people while they're in office. So we'll see if they come up with that response as well. All right. Now,
Mm.
last week, Mercury was in an opportunity, or this week as we're recording, Mercury
Mm.
has been in an opportunity aspect with Mars. So communication, travel, words, action, follow through, fighting words, anger, walking your talk. The TSA discontinued its Quiet Skies program, which was for air marshals. And that was kind of also quietly done. The Newark runway, which has been under construction for a long time, reopened. So maybe we're moving toward things improving at that airport. Um, the administration decided that it is going after the accreditation for Colombia, which
Mm-hmm.
already bent the knee. But nope, nope, they're going for more. They want to rip their accreditation for having allowed pro-Palestine protests. And
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Miller and others are now going after Harvard Law Review for discriminating against white men. I have personal stories about this from when I was on Texas Law Review. Give me a break. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some more. This also fits with Mercury sextile Mars. The administration has contracted with Palantir without competitive bidding, which is not the way it's supposed to go, to build a database of all U.S. citizens or residents, excuse me. And in happier playing out of this, Yulia Navalnaya, who is the widow of Alexei
Mm.
Navalny, launched a new satellite TV station called Russia's Future on what would have been his 49th birthday. So
Ooh.
watch that. Uh,
Mm.
at two more categories here. Um,
Mhm.
fitting
So
with
so
this and
much happening.
fitting with the fact that next week's full moon is going to also fit in with what I'm about to talk about. Biden's last press secretary announced that she has left the Democratic Party and become an independent, and she has a
Oh,
book coming out in October about her experiences in the White House. She's gotten a lot of grief, but apparently what she does is eviscerate the Democratic Party for what they did to her boss. So this is
oh,
not an anti-Biden book from what I've been able to read. It's more like you people did this.
yeah.
And again, she's getting a whole lot of grief from it. And more to come, a lot more news growing out of this, and to come next week involving Biden. Some House committee has subpoenaed his doctor, saying
Oh,
they want to talk to his doctor. Trump is saying that Biden was executed in 2020 and was cloned. How do you
oh,
respond to this? And the Department of Justice or somebody is investigating the fact that Biden used the auto pen. Did he know what he was doing? Well, Trump uses the auto pen. It is legal to use an auto pen to sign an executive order, but more distraction. Okay, here's the big
did
category.
oh, yeah, go
No, you got
on.
more. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, it might you might mention it in this one, so please finish.
This is the elections category. Lots
Oh,
of news in the elections category.
mm-hmm,
First off, Poland elected a far right leader.
mm-hmm.
South Korea elected a center left leader. The Dutch government has collapsed because the head of the populist party withdrew his party from the coalition due to stalling in plans for the strictest migration policy ever. So that's going on the European continent. The New York Supreme Court, which is the first trial court, New York uses reverse language. The New York Supreme Court has ordered a hand count in a lawsuit in Rockland County due to something like 79% of the vote going to Kirsten Gillibrand, Gillibrand, who was running for Senate, and zero, count them, zero votes for Kamala Harris. So that is not precedent for the rest of the country, but it's watch it. This is one of those, Rachel Maddow would say, watch this space.
Mm,
This could lead to many other things. In the not so happy news, the North Carolina Supreme Court, which in North Carolina is the highest court, is allowing the GOP controlled legislature to take control of the state election board, which did belong to the governor's office, but
mm-hmm,
but the legislature said no, we're taking it over, and the court has said you can keep that in place while we have litigation about this. And I will point out that the North Carolina GOP has been in an ongoing power grab since the mutable T square. Remember that phrase, you're going to hear it again in a
mm-hmm,
minute. Mutable T square of June 2016, when a
mm,
a Democrat was elected governor and the legislature started moving statutory powers of the governor over to them, started stripping his authority. So this has been going on for a long time in that state. And finally, what you have been waiting for, dun dun dun, Elon Musk dropping the statement that he won the election for Trump and the House GOP, and that without him, the Senate would have, and he had an exact figure of what the Senate split would be, which
mm-hmm,
is part of this ongoing in real time breakup or who knows what going on
mm-hmm.
between the man who thinks he's running the government and is being pushed out and the man who's sitting in the White House. So, um, important to know as this feud intensifies in the span of one day, which was Thursday, the 5th. Yes,
It drove me to reopen a Twitter account.
right. Okay, so in the span of one day, all right, Musk has already been blasting the budget bill. It's
Mm-hmm,
stripped electric vehicle credits for one thing. So
mm,
he's been blasting the budget bill. He's not getting what he wants. So he says, "Oh, by the way, I won." And then he ups it with, "Oh, by the way, Trump's in the Epstein files." And then
mm-hmm,
Trump responded that he will cut the funding for Starlink and SpaceX. And Musk responded that he is decommissioning the Dragon spacecraft, which are the only way that the U.S. crew gets back and forth between the International Space Station. Then Bannon calls for Musk to be deported as an illegal
Hmm.
alien, and Musk calls for Trump's impeachment.
Impeachment.
And I expect between now and Monday, which is my vote for the hot day of
Mm,
one of the hot days of the month,
mm.
I believe there will be, um,
What
I'm
day
gonna
is Monday?
the ninth, the
The
ninth,
ninth, yeah. Yes,
ninth.
it's on mine as the ninth. Yes, it's the yeah,
Mhm.
a hot day.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's the polite way of what
Hmm.
I see happening. So
Hmm. Mm,
I will lead off
mm,
the general energies for next week, and then Louise is going to go step by
mm,
step through
mm,
the aspects. So this is the framework through which I encourage you to listen to this. We have a series of interconnecting, cooperative, grounding energies that will put our focus on food, quality of our
mm,
food, comfort food, but also our money, our home, our comfort,
mm,
our family, what we care about. That is what is going to keep us grounded as, I mean, there's no other word, no other phrase, but all hell breaking loose. This is a
mm,
really, really volatile, volatile time that will push a lot of things in different directions, force a lot of actions, bring a lot of things to light, demand a lot of changes. And
mhm,
some of what is going on this next week ties to July last year and also the middle of March this year because the wrecking ball that we've been talking about has another hit
mm,
this
mhm.
week.
Yeah.
I will now
And
shut up.
just some words I noted down for just a bit of an overview of what might happen out in the public with all this political stuff going on. Not so much in your own personal life, or like there's gonna be like more authoritarian flirtations, if you call it, but more kind of pomposity, I think. Um, Also that kind of savior, I'm saving you kind of energy, I think is going to come through, but we'll go through all the aspects in a minute. There's going to be this narrative polarization, and we're seeing that already, like, who's telling the truth, who's doing this anyway.
Mhm.
A lot of ego, military alignment, and militant nostalgia, I think, as well is likely to be coming up with this parade, which we're going to look at. And and also there's this kind of battle between the technocracy and tradition in many ways, the old way and the new way. So I'll dive into all the aspects, but you don't have to get yourself sucked into all of those details, right? It's going to play out all right. So anyway, so we start with June the 8th, and the main aspect on June the 8th is Mercury and Jupiter meeting. Mercury is Gemini's ruler, and Mercury and Jupiter meet at the very last degree of Gemini. And any planetary aspect at the very anaretic or last degree of a sign is huge. Jupiter expands everything. This is a major aspect, to be quite honest, particularly regarding that kind of narrative battles kind of energy. It's bloated claims, all those kind of things, would you say? And big news coming through in all ways. It's people, speaking in bloated ways, but also big news being revealed, I think. Anything to add on that one, Kathy?
Oh, yes, please.
Mm,
First off, Jupiter's about to change signs, so this could be
mm,
really escalating and amplifying stuff that's been kicked around for about a year
mm,
since Jupiter moved
mm,
into Gemini in June of last year.
mm.
Secondly, the image I have been using for this is the Nigel Tufnell's amplifier finally really having 11 on the monitor. He wants to turn his monitor up to 11. As crazy and as noisy as the news has been, as insane as social media has been, it's going to be more so.
Oh, yes. Yes, it is. Yeah. And also it's like conflicting narratives. There's going to be like and maybe even like there's all these claims out there of that's not really them. That's kind of like AI, video of, and maybe there was integrated with past video. There's gonna you it's just going to be wild, to be quite honest. And then later that day, Mercury moves into the sign of Cancer, but that will be followed the next day by Jupiter moving into Cancer. And that's where we shift into the food, but also the self-preservation is very Cancerian, wanting to keep the tradition or move back to it, to retaining what we have. Cancer is quite a traditional sign. And
Mhm.
this is launching a year-long journey of Jupiter going through the sign of Cancer. And of course, we are a Cancerian country here in the US. The sun is in Cancer. So I think there's going to be a big shift to self-protection, also feeling basis of security being more threatened, which leads people to want to preserve what we have. Any extra on that one? Because it's a big shift, that one.
Well, two things.
Mm-hmm.
First off,
Mm,
they're both Mercury and Jupiter are both in a harmonious, cooperative,
mm,
collaborative relationship with Venus in Taurus, which is also
mm-hmm,
very much about I want to touch it, feel it, taste it, and being very concerned with your own money and your own
mm,
garden and your own stuff.
mm,
Um, so that's part of it.
mm,
And additionally, watch for information to be processed through your emotions more
mm,
with Mercury being in that sign for
mm-hmm,
more of emotional content of the actual communications
mm,
and speaking and more emotional appeals, speaking more from your emotions. And since all of this is in Cancer, the crab, there could be the possibility of people personalizing a lot of things that
mm.
don't really have anything to do with them. You might be seeing really childish and self-pitying statements flooding social media, worse than we
Mm-hmm,
have seen. And you might just feel like you're watching a bunch of toddlers running around playing
mm.
poor. Just
But
a
also,
hint.
also on that day, June the 9th, when Jupiter's still at the edge of Gemini and about to move in, Mars in Leo makes this lovely unbroken flow aspect to Eris, and the next day to Chiron, both in Aries, and that's activating that June the 1st Venus Chiron Eris conjunction, because it's all still at the same degree. So there's going to be more shake-ups, more kind of Trojan horse kind of things, more shocks. There's much more we could say about that, but we've got a lot of aspects to go through, because the other important aspects that day are Mercury just moved into Cancer, will square Saturn at 0 Cancer Aries, which is, they're called world points because they're the first degree of cardinal signs, initiating signs. And that could be like a reality check, but it could also be some really hardline words, and spoken. They can play out in both ways, but it can also be, like I said, a reality check of kind of like suddenly like understanding what's going on a little bit. But at the same time, moon the moon is opposing Uranus. The Scorpio moon is opposing the revolutionary or breakthrough or shock and awe Uranus. And so there could be some big shocks. Uranus and Mercury have a similar kind of energy about news, information coming through. And the last aspect on that day is Venus in Taurus is square to Pluto in Aquarius. And that adds to what Kathy was saying about those other Venus aspects. And Aquarius is really kind of really the sign of the people or the humanitarian, can also be a bit authoritarian in very many ways. But Pluto's retrograde in there, kind of revealing what's going on, digging up the shadow, and digging up the where we've been disempowered, and so on. And that is a tense square. But if you read my book when it's published, Venus and Pluto have a very similar energy about our values, core values, deepest desires, all that kind of thing. Obviously, all things have many kind of energies to them, But this is another tense standoff square, and it's harking back to the Venus retrograde and all that craziness we had in March, because Venus was in an aspect of opportunity to Pluto through that time. So it's a big day, big day. Anything to add on that one?
We could break the capital switchboard.
Oh, yeah.
People realizing what is
Hmm.
going on with their own money and
Mm,
their own benefits and their own security and their own communities. Uh,
hmm.
there's no telling what will happen in that regard. Also, who knows what the really wealthy people whose um, positions are being massively threatened by any number of things that we could talk
Mm,
about. Money is a huge issue with this, with Venus and Pluto both rule money.
hmm.
Maybe something comes to light involving Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. That could be a piece
Oh,
of it as
please.
well. I know. I happen to think that's just another way to do money laundering. But
Me
that's
too.
just my opinion. Uh,
Hmm.
Anyway, there will be stuff's going to get shaken up, pushed forward, pushed apart. That has consequences. This is not
Hmm.
just, oh, we're shaking things up. No, no. This is the beginning of a series of turning points. And
Mm,
with this kind of week, I often get an image of what we used to call black cats when I was young. There were these little popping fireworks that were
mm,
in a string, and you'd light them and throw them down in the sewer and just hear them
mm.
going off. Only this is more like strings and strings of dynamite
Oh,
going off.
and I think we're starting to see it already. I would, just to look at the Congress, we're seeing, we know that the Speaker, Mike Johnson, forced through the vote on the bill in the House without giving people time to read it. And even Marjorie Taylor Greene is coming out going, well, I mean, they didn't have time. It's like hundreds of pages long. And I'm not supporting Marjorie Taylor Greene, don't get me wrong, but it's a massive bloated bill, and there's so much in it that they are trying to force through, and they and nobody had time to read it, and now people are realizing what's in it. So that's speaking to that kind of
Mhm.
energy of what people are realizing. So of how it's going to affect us all. And so June the 10th is just carrying a continuation because Mars aspects Chiron. But June the 11th, big day, full moon square to the moon's nodes, also square to Centaur Nessus, buck stops here, revealer of abuses of power, with Nessus slowing down to station retrograde. So I'll talk about that a little bit at the end. But also, this full moon is making a fire grand trine to Mars in Leo and Eris and Chiron in Aries, back to those two again. And it's very tight really for a fire grand trine. So that's like huge kind of passions burning up, a fiery full moon already, energetically heightened, square to the nodes, which is between the eclipses. Some people call it the moon wobble, when things really start to get shaky and like literally almost like a wobble in the fabric of time. So, and on that same day, Venus in Taurus again aspects an aspect of opportunity, Mercury in Cancer, and that's at 5 degrees, which is a number of change as well because I'm a 5 life path. So, oh my goodness, this is a full moon of massive change in so many ways, and massive kind of passionate shakeups and people wanting to, almost be like Phoenix reborn. And this is huge, Cassie.
Well, since the sun and the moon are squaring the nodes, this
Mm,
creates a mutable grand cross. A grand
hmm.
cross in mutable signs, which is very flexible, and they could seem to go one way and seem to go another way and back and forth. And there might be a sense of no resolution for a
Mm,
moment, a sense of being suspended in time, being very
mm,
aware of where we've been and where it looks like we're going, and watching a conflagration ignite with that grand
mm,
fire trine,
mm,
and not quite yet dealing with it. Like I'm
mhm,
being suspended over it, like the the hanged man in the tarot is the image I've been
Yeah.
using. He's not in danger. He's looking at things and he's not yet interacting it. The
Hmm.
hangman will get off the tree in a
Oh,
minute
yeah.
and get moving, but just know that this words. Full moon, there we go. Full moon brings a lot of things to a head. It's in
Mm.
the sign that rules politics. And you
And
hear
truth.
and truth. Politics and truth. Sticks and
Mm,
stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Not true. This
hmm
is like, uh-oh, how are we being hurt? How are things happening? What do we need to release? What are the real world implications of ideologies and
mm,
philosophies and being suspended between being able to be really intellectual and say, oh, well, we're all going to die, and moving toward the North Node in Pisces with, we're all in this together. How are we going to
mm.
fix this for the bulk of the people, bringing some empathy and understanding into situations?
And just to add, it's a Sagittarius full moon, and so that is Jupiter guided, and Jupiter has just moved into the sign of Cancer, as we mentioned. And Jupiter loves being in Cancer, said to be exalted. I don't really use those words, but it likes the sign of Cancer. And so what's illuminated with under a full moon, with all of this information flying everywhere and truths being revealed and all kinds of stuff, is going to speak to those themes about self-preservation and the home, family, and our basis of security. So interesting.
And I'll just
So
throw in Canada is also a Cancer sun country,
mm,
not
mhm,
just the US. The US
mhm.
and Canada both have Cancer suns.
Yep. So I'm just going to whiz through the next aspects because, this is going to be long if we keep going. But on June the 12th, as we're heading towards the June the 14th parade, and we're going to look at that chart, um, Mercury, newly in Cancer, Mercury's whizzing along at speed, by the way. So that adds to kind of this sense of information coming out so fast. Will square off to Ceres, nourishment, nurture, how we're nurtured in Aries. So that's a cardinal square. So that adds to this kind of information coming through about this is not working for us as we find out new things. June the 13th, the sun will exactly square the nodes. It was almost exact on the full moon. June the 30th, but really it's kind of all happening together. So we've talked about that. And June the 15th, big day is, and that's the day after the parade, and it's an applying aspect. So we feel it coming. Mars squares off to Uranus at 28 degrees, almost 29, Leo, Taurus. That's hugely volatile, hugely disruptive, and can bring sudden change. Do you want to add quickly? I think we talked about that one last
Right, but
week
I
as
just want to
well.
remind people
Mm,
this happened in July of
hmm
2024. It was, and Uranus was part of the picture in this kind of uh,
hmm
lineup with the eclipse, the Virgo lunar eclipse on March 15th, which is when Signal Gate,
hmm
remember that? That's when that was
mm,
happened, I believe, or reveal. It is an important date for it. So
mm,
we've been through this a couple of times, and you can look at this as watching the equivalent of explosives that were stuck on the bottom of supports, going
hmm
off, going off, and then going off. I wouldn't be surprised, for one thing, if the bridge between Crimea and Russia completely collapses under this.
Could do. And then June the 17th, Mars enters the sign of Virgo, kind of, which is, well, again, everything has shine and shadow. Mars in Virgo will take on a deeply different flavor. It's been in Leo for a long time because it went to 6 degrees and stationed retrograde and went back into Cancer and then moved back into Leo. Mars in Virgo, I see it as I'm always the eternal optimist. So personally, I see it as real drive to do the right thing and to start, being more useful in the world. I know there's shadows to it, but I'm always the optimist. So, and I also think we kind of bring in what we're talking about a little bit. But Kathy, what's your thing on Mars in
Everyone gets a
Virgo?
male fix-it gene. This is
Mm,
measure 15 times, cut once. This
mm-hmm,
is how do we make this better? This is taking
mm-hmm,
incremental action.
mm-hmm.
Um, the
Yeah.
old song Inchworm from Hans Christian Andersen, if any of you are out there are old enough to remember that one.
Okay, and June the 18th, last quarter moon is at 27 Pisces Gemini. I'm not going to go into details that much, but the last quarter is kind of the releasing quarter. But except to say that 27 Pisces was the degree the nodes sat at right through the last eclipse season, and where Neptune was and Venus was and all the things. And at the same time, almost on June the 18th, Jupiter squares off to Neptune, and Jupiter and Neptune are the modern and traditional rulers of the Pisces um, North Node and of Pisces, basically. And that's at 2 degrees Cancer Aries. So that is activating the Venus star point from March the 22nd at 2 Aries. And they're very similar energies. That's all about belief, faith, and understanding, but also I think there's going to be revelations and things in that as well. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
add one thing. I think we
Mm.
on the 15th, doesn't Jupiter square Saturn before
Oh,
before it makes this? So
it did.
there's this, so those
Mm,
dates are going to be sort of
mm,
connected.
mm-hmm.
The 15th and the 18th,
Mm,
kind of a
yeah.
bridge, and there might be something about extreme behavior by a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is when the military, I don't know.
Yes.
Mars in, I mean, Saturn in Aries. Anyway, big, 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 something really big involving a leader, involving the military, maybe involving some gaslighting
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of passion and a sense of mission.
And one last day, June the 20th, the solstice. Sun moves into Cancer that day, depending where you are, I think, in the world. But on that day, Mercury in Cancer, trotting along now at 21 degrees, will make an unbroken flow aspect to Centaur Nessus. That one, the buck stops here, revealer of abuses of power. But not only that, Nessus stations retrograde the very next day. So all these energies are more potent and powerful when they're at their station point. So who knows what news is going to come out on that solstice? That's going to be like, woohoo.
I'll throw one final thing in. On that
Mm,
day, Mars, planet of push, cosmic
mm,
first responder, is in an adjustment aspect with Saturn. Huh.
mm. I didn't look at the quincunxes
Huh.
because I
No, I'll
couldn't.
just throw that out as,
Yeah.
huh. Just
Adding to it. Yes.
hmm, some
So,
kind of adjustment in
yeah.
authority.
So that, as you can hear, we've got a lot of news coming through. I don't know if you mentioned Vought as well, Russell Vought, Kathy, in your news.
I did not.
No,
Nope.
apparently he's been given responsibility for Doge now, as well as the OBM, because he's the one of the creators of Project 2025. So that's less good news. But also, we're finding these things out. They tried to kind of sneak that one in under all this fight with Musk, I think, so because it was not talked about a lot. So, shall we look at the parade chart? Because a lot
Please.
of
Yes. Okay.
you have asked about that. And I will not be watching it. I suggest that none of us do, because there's going to be a lot of pomposity. There's we kind of looked at this a little bit before we came on, and a couple of things that leapt out at me is that this is the time the parade is scheduled to start on a certain person's birthday, and the moon, the people in the sign of Aquarius, also the people, is right on the USA's south node. And I'm going to say it's on the cusp of the third house, which is really about community and information and understanding and learning and voice and many other things, of course. But that's one thing that just leapt out. And of course, it's conjunct Pluto early, a little bit before. I think, even if you don't sit and watch it, I think what's revealed under that is almost feels like the true intentions that we're beginning to realize, or people are beginning to realize. Some of us knew most of the time, but also this rising sign, 29 degrees Scorpio. In what's called Hori astrology, the astrology of questions, having a last degree rising sign always means something is going to change right after. And I think that principle probably applies to this chart as well, and not a good sign to have for the beginning of something like the parade. But of course, Scorpio is power and manipulation, and I think it's going to be a real display of might is right, at least trying to. Mars square Uranus on squaring these angles as well. And Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio, right, as well. And we've talked about the Mars Uranus square bringing radical change. Could also bring some kind of violent actions. Please don't take that as meaning that it's going to impact us. But I think something quite shocking could play out. Anyway, Kathy.
Well, that Uranus is on the descendant, a
Mm-hmm.
sudden change
Mm-hmm.
in an alliance, a relationship, an open enemy coming to the front.
Mm-hmm.
The Mars is in the ninth house of government, but also foreign relations.
Mm-hmm.
And you were saying that a 29-degree rising sign indicates something will change. And I'm going to say that Uranus on the descendant also says something is
Mm-hmm.
changing, and it's going to be a really forceful change. And it
Mm-hmm.
may be a change involving, since Mars is in Leo, the leader. Also, Mars is on somebody's ascendant. To
Mm-hmm.
somebody's ascendants, the two
Mm-hmm.
occupants of the top two highest positions in the country. There is this volatility and unpredictability
Mm-hmm.
wired into this. And if they had an astrologer on board, that person would not have suggested this time or this
No.
day. You do not, there are very, very few events for which you want Scorpio rising to be the ascendant, because that colors the entire experience of it. And
Mm-hmm.
death, rebirth, I don't know. I would imagine that this also is speaking to, there are many, many other in the streets events going on earlier in the day. And as the
Mm-hmm.
moon earlier in the day is moving across that Pluto and Aquarius, those are going to be the parades to watch all over the country, the No Kings parades. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
say that this Scorpio, this Taurus Scorpio opposition, both squaring Mars in the ninth, also says no kings.
Yeah. And Mars is also the military in
Yes.
and it's he's direct. It's to celebrate the 250 years of the military as well. This parade, quite on. That was his excuse for doing it the way he's doing it. But we've long suspected and had ideas that there could be kind of a bit of a turning against the leader by the military. This could happen with Mars square Uranus, you know. And also, it's pretty much in that aspect of adjustment to Chiron and Eris that have been causing those kind of Trojan horse kind of energies. And just saying, there's a few things. The sun is still pretty much square the nodes, just past exact major turning point again, often called the moon wobble. And that's like this wrinkle in time where everything feels uncertain. And again, things change, big things change. This,
And it may not happen during the parade, but it
no,
could happen really quickly after the parade,
Hmm.
especially when the Mars-Uranus square becomes exact the
Hmm.
next day or
Yeah,
overnight. Who knows?
yeah, yeah. So, it's a terrible chart for the parade, to be quite honest. And I don't know whether we want to put his. Um,
Can we just say it's a terrible chart for a birthday chart? And
we
not
can
put
say
more
that.
energy into
Yes,
it.
we can say that too. But I will just point out, rather than putting that on, that we've talked about the sun and the full moon all squaring the nodes. These nodes and Nessus, which is about to station retrograde, are square his full moon chart in his chart, which is he was born on an eclipse, so it's also squaring his lunar nodes. This is, yeah, and again, squares not good always.
And
It's going to drive change at least. So,
and the fact that Nessus is stationing retrograde means there's kind of a bearing
mm,
down of
mhm,
the situation, and it's all stressing out his nodes. Exactly,
mhm.
right? And
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
if you want to put
mhm.
it around. At any rate, bottom line is this isn't
Not
going to
really.
be a one-day event. But the revealing of abuse of power is now baked into his birthday. That means it's
Mhm.
baked into his solar return chart, his birthday chart, meaning that it's there for the next at least year
Yes.
in his experience of life. Take heart in that.
And there's that aspect that I missed in my list, the Jupiter square Saturn, as well as just solar arc minutes from exact Jupiter in Cancer to Saturn. That's got this energy of judges coming down harder as well, and all
Mhm.
all kinds of it's just so not good, the parade. But I will say the parade on the surface will seem like this. There could be this energy of, we all know he's going to claim the victim mode, and I've been like, and but he's going to be all puffed up and say, I'm the one that can save you. There's a bit of a savior thing going on in this chart in many ways as well. But I think people are going to see through it this time. More people, shall I say?
I agree.
Yeah. Hmm. So, don't take it all on surface value. This is really what's going on underneath. Not good for him. Any last words on that? Um,
What I would just say is
mm,
pressure coming from the courts, bad news from the courts, bad news coming from politics, bad news coming from foreign countries.
mm,
Nope,
very much.
nope. I'm not
Yeah.
watching it. I'm spending the day at a book fair.
Oh, I'm not. I'm not watching it at all. But I will probably watch the headlines popping up about it because I like to know what's going on. But I won't give him that attention. But I kind of just wrote some last words as well. So the noise
Please.
is really getting louder. There's going to be this military air of military fanfare, and there's going to be flashy headlines and savior storylines. I mentioned those as well. But really, I think this is the final act of a power structure that knows it's losing its grip. It's going to be spectacle and distraction, and everything's really, it's starting to fall apart. It really is. And so I would say stay awake and aware of what's going on, but don't get entranced by it, if you like, and unplug, um, so that you don't go numb with all this bullshit that's flying around. Excuse my language. Cassie, I should have stopped the square for that. Yeah, but anyway.
That's okay. And if you find yourself regressing, taking comfort in food, so what?
Mm, mhm.
So what? Slack will be given. Slack
Yeah.
will be given. Maybe bake, do something nice to yourself, for yourself, whatever you consider a treat. Yeah,
My
that's
my
what I
um
say.
my Jupiter in Cancer will well, because Jupiter's my ruling planet as well. Will probably make a nice, comforting casserole. I don't bake,
Ooh,
so I make nice, warm. I throw everything in the pot and just let it cook forever. So so I'll
soft and
probably
warm.
do that. Yes, yeah. So it doesn't expand my waistline because with the Jupiter, I have to be mindful of that. So so yeah, but self-care as always, it really is going to be wild out there. And you know, the wildness in your personal life can be kind of road to advantage, you know, to make radical changes you need to make, because you're more conscious and aware because you watch things like this.
Mm.
Anyway, that's all for us this week. Next week, I think we're going to find a time to record because then I have to fly up to Seattle on maybe a bit earlier on the day or something. Kathy and I will talk about that. The 2 weeks after, though, I will be in the UK and we will not be here. So next week we'll try and cover a bit of the time I'm away. So anyway, goodbye for now.
Bye, everyone. It's really happening.